Okay, let's call it order. At 6:08 on Tuesday, April 19th, we will call our perhaps final proposed budget to order.
Positive vibes.
Yeah, so are you gonna take us through it?
I'll do it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, a lot of this you've already heard.
Okay.
So what I've done is changes. By the time we finished all the budgets, we were at 14. So I had to do some changes to get below 15. Because that was the resolution we were given as that the budget, operating budget had to be 3 or less. So here's the question. We're at 1.82. Do you want to stop now?
Yeah. At, no.
So, okay.
That's nice.
So here is us saying what the resolution had been. So that's asking that we not go over 3. This is the total of all of them. So each of these line items is the total of every budget that goes right across. This is what, unless you do changes, this is what's going to be approved. For each of the revenue, the expenses, it shows you what was last year and the difference, and we're at 1.82%. So going on to government, so that's all the 1 departments. Here's legislation. You can see that it actually went down from last year. So the council budget is 49,867.47, lower than 2021. The revenue is lower than 2021, and because there's less funds coming from reserve, and that's because last year we used money for amalgamation. So that's the difference in the revenue. Expenses is lower than 2021 as the expenses were preparing for amalgamation. So that's basically the difference between your 2021 and 2022 budget. Any questions? Go on.
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right, admin is up by $4,857.43. Some of that has to do with the revenue, to do with tax collections. They do balance out in the expenses. In 2021, we got computers for some of the staff as replacement. That won't happen this year, so that will also make a difference. Now, going into capital. So we'll do operating and then we'll do capital so that you can see how it runs. We're doing transfer from operating budget into the capital reserve for future building repairs, upgrades, stuff like that. So that's the only capital we have under administration. Special projects. We do special projects, which is admin, but it affects all the departments. So we just took it out of admin so that you could see that it's project-based instead of just admin-based. And it's gone down 47,000, and that has to do again with amalgamation. Okay, in 2021, we did an asset management for $55,000. That was both grant and from our reserve, so that was a special project. 2021 was the amalgamation, and 2021 we had money for the election. I've actually put money in case we have to have one for 2022. We have a reserve for elections, so that's going to be offset should we need to have them. It doesn't come from the tax base. Okay, this is one of the changes I did. With the money that we had left over with surplus, we put the money some of that money into the contingency fund. There was 65,000 was transferred for the contingency fund, an additional 50,000. So the budget had 100,000 to go in. I took that out totally. Any problems? That's okay. Capital budget, the building. 146,122 to finish the front entrance to the town office, carried forward from 2021. And this is funded by grants. Equipment, 10,000 transferred from other departments. Anybody that uses the server pays a portion, 10,000 then goes into reserve. And that server will be replaced almost every 4 years, about $30,000, 3 to 4 years. Health and safety. It has gone down $15,000. So in 2022, all the staff will be required to have diversity and inclusion training. This is being funded from an operating reserve. Surplus from previous years will be transferred into to cover expenses if and as required, which can help to fulfill the balance of 3%. Our consultant is lower this year than previous years, so those are the differences. Protective services. Okay, any questions on that?
The reason why it's lower, just so that you know, is that we don't have to have an audit done this year.
Just
Go
a
ahead,
quick question. I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this. You probably will because you've been working on it. The diversity and inclusion training.
Yes.
Is that through new regulations that it's a requirement now?
Last year, so that all of this council knows, we did have a concern that went to human rights, and it has been mandated that we have to have it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Good with that?
Okay, protective services. So that's all the departments that start with a 2. And that's the total. Dare and police. I had to do a little bit of changes with how we're seeing the RCMP because the auditor, they had asked me not to put them into reserve to bring it out, but to recognize it this year and have it as an accrued waiting to be paid. And so it's just in a different holding.
Sorry, can you say that again? Which one?
The RCMP.
Oh, right. Okay.
I had it going into a reserve to come back out next year. They said no, it's supposed to be for this year, just because they don't invoice us till March. We should recognize it this year, so I changed it. DARE has increased by 1,405. Just that more students. The RCMP budget is 54,216.80, more than 2011, and that has to do, or 21, sorry. The 2020 invoice was budgeted for 53,623. The invoice came in at 53,935, so it was 312 over what was quoted to us. 2021 was $460 more than what they quoted. So we're not quite sure. We have a little bit of money that I put aside so that we might be able to cover it. because 2022, the bill for the RCMP will be 107,247.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So in 3 years, we've seen that, that budget double,
And
just from
just being
downloading, right?
told,
Yeah.
we don't have,
Just say you guys pay now.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I'm sure, correct me if I'm wrong, we knew this was coming and that it was going to increase
yes, I have,
substantially every year for 3 years.
Okay. Is this the peak now? Is this the 3rd year?
I don't know, I think it's 4, isn't it?
4 and 5 are the same, and then, no, next year will be the peak.
Next year will be, okay.
yeah, I have 154, 124,
How about this?
and then 157.
157 is the peak for next year.
157.
Yeah.
So wow, so it's tripled in 4 years. Wow, great.
Can I go to the backstory on that?
Sure.
Just so that you're aware, up until three years ago, municipalities under the size of 5,000 people did not have to pay for police costs. They had a new model for policing, and that new model of policing says that everybody pays. And that's how, and it's all based on equalized assessment. And a shadow population, shadow crime population, so they have a formula that they use.
Thanks, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Okay. So fire. One of the changes I did in fire was Jamie had the revenue coming in from users as 52. I increased it to 72. Just because they made 87 last year. Hopefully they'll make that so that it'll cover the expenses. Theirs has increased by 126,597.31. Invoices for calls outside of town has increased. The project revenue was increased to 20,000. The county pays half of most operating expenses, with the expense increase, so that the amount expected to be charged to the county. Funds are being transferred from the operating reserve to cover some of the capital costs of purchasing the engine truck. Wages and benefits have increased due to increased call volume, increased hours required to complete mandatory training, administration, and health and safety requirements. Contracted and general services has increased as the fire hall requires some maintenance work such as shingling, hot water tank leaks, and painting. The fuel budget has been increased because of the increased call volume and the increase at the pump. Funds were transferred from the capital budget to purchase piece of equipment along with funds from future assets. So, capital budget. Do you have any question on the operating budget? Yes.
When we do a medical call out
Yes.
and sit around in Calgary for a few hours, who gets invoiced for that? I noticed you say invoices to the county.
Yes.
But,
Well-
sorry.
The county one is, we do for half of the operating with the exception of a couple of things. So they pay half of that. If we go out on calls, then we do invoice. The county also and the government for any accidents on the highway.
Should we invoice Calgary if we're sitting around for hours?
Our fire department does not transport people, so that does not happen. When they're in their EMS uniforms, that's part of their daytime job. That's not part of the fire job. We do not do medical transports. Fire does not do medical transports.
I thought
Jamie was working for EMS that day. So when he was referencing transfers, he was talking about the ambulances, not the fire truck. 'Cause the fire department isn't legally allowed to transport anyone. So they can't actually take, so Jamie, when he's working for HS, can transport people wherever they want him to. But he can't invoice back to the town because he's not working for the town. Make sense?
Yeah, I guess I just misunderstood Jamie when he was wearing his fire uniform and saying that, yeah, we're gonna be,
EMS uniform.
He was wearing his EMS uniform.
There are a few exceptions that they may have to assist, but there's all these rules and liabilities and stuff that have prevented them from continuing to be the drivers. So there's maybe 2 or 3 that could, but it's really a lot lower than it used to be. But no, they don't charge that.
Okay, thank you.
If they do. Okay, capital. They are getting a Jaws of Life, and that came from the operating.
Do I have the old one?
No.
I'll buy it.
Talking to
All these
them.
cars being canned open for. What's going on?
Okay, they're also getting a vehicle, which you're all aware of. And on that note, let me see here. Okay, so I know Jamie's talking to them to find out when it's coming. So it's not here yet. I'm sure he'll drive up during one of your meetings just so that you can see it.
I expect so. Yeah, I want to ride.
That's usually what
I want to ride
happens.
home that night.
Um, 207,920 came from the operating budget for future assets. Any questions on fire? Concerns? Okay. Emergency management. It has decreased by 9,000 to 3609. Previous year surplus was transferred in to offset expenses if and as required, which also assists in the full budget being below the 3%. Okay, a second deputy director. We used to have 2, and then 1 left. We've now got a new one. Unfortunately, all 3 of them are in the real jobs, emergency services, so they were trying to find people that were on different shifts so that we could, if we have an emergency, hopefully we'll have at least one of them here. Capital, 250,000 comes from the operating budget into here to replace equipment, repairs, upgrades, anything that we might need if there is a disaster or any of the equipment that needs to be fixed. This is a woohoo. Emergency event. There isn't a budget. We're finished with the flood of 2013. So the money went back in January of this year. FRESC, which is 911. And stars. It has increased by $53. And that has to do with the FRESC. We haven't increased the stars since 2017. We may have to look at some of these things that we pay by per capita because next year we'll be at the 28. What is it, 2801 or 2803 or be in Melton, one or the other. So. Dogs Protective Services. Revenue from animal fines were lowered to better represent the actual received in 2021. We are contracted with Longview. Last year it was only a portion. This year we've got the revenue for 12 months. Wages were increased as the new officer is being hired that is fully trained. Extra bonus, he fits the uniform. The wage increase is offset by not having the person in place for 2 months in 2022. Capital budget, equipment going for equipment is 14,766.17. Remaining equipment to go to the new Dodge Durango. And then for the equipment for the Durango and the Durango. That was the budget. And then 6,500 for future vehicle and equipment. Yes?
So, like, this is all combined in the budget, or when we see the final budget tomorrow night, I suspect we'll be seeing it. Is this all gonna be separated so that it's the operating budget and the capital budget, what we're spending in 2022?
If you have, one of these have that. Already?
Oh, wait a minute, maybe it's this one? Is it this one?
The one that says, 2022 proposed operating
Got
budget.
it.
I think that one hasn't.
Okay, well, doesn't matter. I'm just getting a little confused about what the actual 2020, what we're spending in 2022 on capital spending on not planning for the future. So the budget that is going to be presented to us for 2022.
I go, on one of these things, you will see a page that has the operating on top.
Yep.
And then as a sheet that has the capital. So the top portion is all of the capital projects
Perfect.
and then the transfers.
So that's what we'll be approving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Now
I just didn't see it for some reason.
Is there more to it than this? Maybe if there's transfers, but this is the whole.
That's the whole
budget? Okay.
I did change the pictures if you want different pictures, instead of having the crayons.
You just email us.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting. I just was wondering.
Just council, just so that you're aware, it's not going to show up on tomorrow night's budget, or tomorrow night's council meeting. It will come the first week council meeting in May.
I do them together like this because money is coming from operating, so it's a flow.
So I get that. It's just, I was just wondering if we were gonna actually know what the final 2022 capital budget numbers were. And you're telling me we will. Perfect.
Yes, it'll just be in a Excel sheet. Safety codes. This is all the inspections that Park does and any revenue recognized here is automatically transferred to development. So it's a zero budget. The revenue has increased because of the housing starts, so they'll recognize more money also. Transportation. Okay, common services is public works. That doesn't fit in any other category. We do their vacation and sick leave and everything through common services. Revenue was increased by 33,000. This budget will receive the funds from duties invoiced to West End for our staff. This will decrease the amount required from operating reserve to offset the expenses. Contracted services has increased mainly due to building repairs and furnace in the Quonset needs a repair replacement. The shop requires a sump pump or sump repair. Engineering services has been evaluating the structure and the safety of the shop for the last 3 years and will continue. We've got some problems. Sinkholes, they think it might be about to fall down at some time, so we're keeping an eye on it.
And we are learning it.
That's what enough that falls down should be.
As long as they're all working, though. I didn't say that out loud.
Okay, we're going to be transferring $4,000 for the furnace upgrade that didn't happen last year. We're putting away $50,000 for a new building to do what we have to do for that, for a building. Roads. It's gone up to 3%. Well, probably more. Common services, that's supposed to say roads, sorry, has increased to 2,903.29 from 2021. Revenue was reduced by 46,846.60. 2001 had revenue coming in from the capital reserve to cover the design and geotech of the water looping project. Transfers from operating reserve was also reduced. Expenses also reduced by 43,000. Wages increased, and the contractor services was reduced. So just capital engineering structure. These are projects. The Griffin Lane Drainage Project. I have to break out each project as to roads, water, sewer, storm sewer. So you'll see different numbers, just the same project. So this is for the lane, for the paving, or the structuring of it. It's coming from a grant. $6,000 for the curb at Fast Gas sidewalk expansion. We're hoping that this will get approved. It hasn't been approved yet from the grant. If it's not approved, then we won't do it. It's the leftover MSP money. $7,000 is from the resolution of 2021 that council agreed to place the installation of a 12-meter of sidewalk with rock curb, crosswalk signage, and line painting for the crosswalk at the intersection of 4th Avenue Southwest and 1st Street Southwest, east and west, coming from Brackness. Okay, $30,000 new for upgrading sidewalks. That's if the grant is approved. It's again for the MSP. Project 11, which is the 1st Avenue from 4th until 3rd Street Southwest and 1st Avenue Southwest. So the road portion is $750,256. Okay, this is for you guys. It's not in the budget. You would ask us to go and get information about paving. So that section of the one block is $160,000.
So from the main road along Dairy Queen?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can you say that one again for me, sorry?
$160,000.
Okay, bingo, thank you.
So it's on slide 47.
Is that is that just paving or does that include sidewalk?
No, it's just paving.
That's just paving. If we were to go all the way to the school, is $390. The problem with that is we won't be doing underneath it. So if anything happens, we'll have to tear that up because it is older. We do believe that we have money that we could take out of the reserve that's was actually to be used for the water looping. But because we were able to use grants, we didn't need to use that. So we could take $160,000 out of that for the water looping. So that's a decision you guys have to make.
So that water looping would finalize what we need to do at that street?
Pardon me?
The water looping finalize what we need to do at the street, is what you said?
No, that's just paved.
No, you said 168,000 finished water looping.
No, it came from a reserve.
Oh,
We had a contingency fund that we had a few $1 million we didn't know we could spend, and so we pulled it out for the aerial for water looping, and then we were able to use a grant instead. So we could use that particular reserve if we want to do the paving.
Did, I can't remember her name, the lady that, she stuck around until we got to this portion of it?
Megan,
Megan. She said that, I can't recall, she did make mention of how old those pipes were though, did she not, down that road? Didn't she say they were decent? Was that the right term?
Well, they, on the matrix, they come in at a 3.
Okay,
So, which means that their life expectancy is already at half.
okay,
We're still doing some testing and water testing and making sure that those ones aren't leaking
okay.
at this point in time.
Okay.
If you want to do the whole street, you need to add the 160 and the 390.
Add them together.
Add them together, okay? The one block is 160
I see.
for pavement only. We're already putting water in there. It's already got sewer in there.
Okay.
And so the curb and gutter, and then we're doing the lane project on top of that. So that would finish that whole block, if you wanted to have pavement on there.
Okay.
From First to Third, it's an additional 390 for paving only. And that hasn't even been included in design yet.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Shirley. Go ahead.
Did this council ever get that document that all the pipes were scoped and mapped and,
Yeah, it's in their folders.
is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
It is. Yeah.
And so-
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so in your asset management, you also have, the formula's kind of changed. We now have, you remember that area where you had all of those blocks with the numbers and they were different colors? So we related that back to the asset management. And so that's the new P1, P2, P3, P4, right? So it's all done in colors. So what needs to happen first, second, third, and fourth, based on a color matrix. And council has had that. That's also in your iCompass folder.
Go ahead.
Just have a question about, if we do pave those roads, let's say we pave all of it, is there storm sewer underneath or would that?
No, it all goes curb and gutter.
Okay,
Yeah, and into catch basins.
okay.
And
And
then,
those catch basins, like, let's say we pave First now, or, whatever, fourth to Jesus. First to center, too many things. Is there already a catch basin in place over there, past what we're putting up by the,
can I just do this for a second?
hill in that alley?
Are we good? Oh, the people can't see that. Okay, so this is the area that we would be. Dun, 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 dun. This is the road that we're looking at. This is 160,000 from here to here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing, if council approves it, we're gonna do this street.
Yeah.
And I have to put that stuff in like relatively soon.
Right.
Because we're getting very close on construction season. Okay? So if you could even give me approval in principle for grants, I'd be happy on that. But anyway, so we're gonna go from here to here. If you pay from here to here, all the water will flow to a catch basin down here, go into the storm sewer, and then out this way.
The catch basin's already in place?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was saying, and then we put, all right,
We're already fixing part of the cul-de-sac second.
If you approve it.
That's in plan.
if we were to approve all the way up to the school, is the catch basin in place there, or would that?
No, it all runs downhill. And so if you get all the way up to here, you would have to run curb and gutter all the way down, down,
Yeah.
down. Down. What street am I on?
To the left.
One more to the left, Shirley. Left.
There we go, right here.
One more.
One more.
Right here.
There you go. Yeah.
There we go.
You go.
This is, we would run curb and gutter all the way down here.
Yeah.
It might, depending on the design, it might hit the catch basin that's over here on Fifth, or it might go straight down here to the catch basin here.
Would it overwhelm that catch basin size potentially? Like, would we have to have?
We have to get it designed,
Okay.
Right? because it's not designed. And that amount doesn't include design on doing, catch basins or anything else like that. It's just a paving quote.
Okay,
But
just
that's-
paving.
Thanks, Ted.
Just 10% of project cost is usually design cost.
15.
He's gone to 15, but I'm gonna tell the boy that was what he said.
Listen, you can do it.
He won't work.
Yeah.
So the total cost be about $550,000 to do the whole road.
Just for concrete.
Just
Just
for paving. Yeah. I think, have you driven that road lately?
Oh, I like it. I like the idea. I like what we're doing.
Right down
I like
there.
the kids like that. It's so fast. Yeah, I was hesitant initially when you asked for.
Well, I mean, the road even up top is horrible, like as you get closer, it's terrible. Oh.
One piece at a time. I think this is a great start. I think if we're.
So
if
I'm
we're
in
gonna be
favor of
serious
going
about
ahead and doing the whole project. Paving it, especially when Charlene tells us like the pipes underneath are
Ah.
only halfway through.
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
life. I'd like to see to get that done. And you know, the bottom line is there'll be some cost savings because just dealing with that stuff and the big potholes and everything every year, it's, you know, it's getting worse and worse and worse, so it's harder for Public Works to deal with it every year.
Can we look at upgrading that catch basin as well? What, at the same time?
That'd be engineered, right?
It would have to be engineered.
If you get, yeah.
Yeah, but that'll change all of this stuff again, right?
Well, that'd be another thing too. I mean, if we're gonna end up paving it, then at some point, it's end up getting paid, and the catch basin will have to
Yeah.
be upgraded, so we might as well do it all at once.
Yeah.
Then.
If it needs to be upgraded.
If it needs to be
And the
upgraded.
runoff now just goes
Yeah,
flying down there now,
making more pots.
making
Really?
more potholes.
You could leave it as it is, and because the money's going to be coming from reserves anyways, do an RFP.
Once we know.
once we know. So you can tell us to look into it, and then it can be an RFP, and that wouldn't hold up the budget.
Right. Well, and furthermore, I think we should be getting things moving. Charlene, you alluded to that a minute ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem putting
Yeah.
any sort of motion forward to get that stuff.
Yeah.
Approved so that we can get some paperwork moving on.
That would be good.
Yeah, I mean, as long as.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we circle back to that? Or?
We will circle back to that.
Okay, well, okay, let's talk about that before we leave tonight then.
Yeah.
So that maybe we can get Charlene something in her hands that she can, as long as everyone's comfortable with that.
I am.
Let's circle back to it then. Great, awesome.
And then we'll put a pin in it, okay?
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. Thank you for getting all that stuff. This is great.
Okay.
This is really good stuff.
So not to put it in the budget, and we'll,
I think the catch basin is the only thing that we would have to come back with the RFD. I think that we'd like to move forward with this portion, surely.
with the full,
But the catch basin maybe would come back in the form of an RFD for a budget amendment, if need be.
Yeah.
I think
We
they're
don't have
saying,
enough information, because the catch basin might be fine.
Yeah, and then that way we can at least give you the green light
Yeah,
sooner
okay.
and we'll come back to the catch basin. That's good, Heather.
So saying to go to the engineer and say, we want all the way up to the school done.
Yeah.
Now, do you want that as part of the budget, or do you want that to be in an RFD that the money will come out of
it goes in the budget,
capital?
I would say, in the budget, the capital budget.
Okay, well, can we talk about this?
can we talk about that? Yeah.
So I'm clear on it.
Just
Let's talk
so
about it.
that
Okay,
it's
so-
all clear.
Okay, so two options, we put in the budget, but then we have to wait till the budget's approved before we can go ahead with it. Or we go RFD with what we need to get done to start
Right.
before approving the budget. Does
So-
that make sense?
So for the capital, nothing's changed on the capital, except for that, on that plan that I gave you guys.
Okay,
Which if we can approve in principle, so I can, or not even in principle, but you just approve it, so, because it all comes from grants, I can move that ahead. We can talk about that after. This piece, the 160 with the 390, so that's, well, $500,000 for paving. By the time we're said and done, what we can do is we'll RFD that piece, but I will have them include that scope when we're going out there, because the engineering firm is already aware of what that needs to look like. Okay, so they're well aware that this may be coming. We can RFD it. In principle, we'll get an RFD on this piece.
In the meantime, we can give you
You can give me what I need for capital.
to get moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, if you can guide us through that, then.
I can.
Would you like to go ahead?
I have a question, going back to the start, so it was 1.82% on the operating or the capital and the operating?
Operating.
Okay.
Capital has to be 0.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
We have to cover that, so it has to be 0. So yes. The percentage is.
Does that make
100%
sense?
operating.
We're all okay? We'll circle back to the
Yeah,
capital.
let's
Okay.
definitely finish off so that
Okay.
you can go ahead with that, Charlie.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
roads, capital equipment. So this again is the, this portion is the streetlights of that First Avenue Southwest. So that's 52,022. And we want to do $20,000 for a solar power crosswalk by the campground to 606. Assets for the future, $40,000 for equipment, 10,200 for vehicles, and then engineering structure projects down the road to replace what has already been done, which is like 22,779.09 with the town lane, well, the last 4 projects that we've done. Public transit. It's gone up a lot. It's gone up 11,000. Revenue in 2022 was reduced in the budget from the transit fares of 2021. They get it closer to what it should look like. There is more revenue being transferred in from operating reserve to offset the expenses. Funds have been budgeted to be transferred to capital reserve to replace future vans or vehicles as the asset program. And the contract driver service is through the Boys and Girls Club.
What?
I read you were getting $5,000 from the province for transit.
Yep.
Is that this year or is that coming?
This year, yeah.
Is that in here somewhere or?
it's not included in there because we heard about it after.
Right.
Yeah, that's timing.
So you'll include it in the audit or next year's budget as a.
It'll
It will be
offset.
eaten. It will be eaten up probably by the operations of it, because it's not paying for itself. So,
It never will. It's just how-
Yeah.
Don't
So-
feel bad.
What it will do is reduce the amount that we're gonna pull in from operating reserves
And so when would you dump that into the budget?
when we get it.
Right?
So it'll just show as an addition. So when you get your actual versus budgets, those conversations, it'll show as an addition.
Okay. And then next year's budget time, someone will be like, what is this, 5,000?
Right,
You
So
would.
if I will be like, I
You
don't
would.
remember.
right. Yeah.
So
And it's a rapid transit funding.
12 months.
it will come in as a grant. Storm sewer.
Yay. Exciting stuff.
It's gone down by $347. In 2021, there was a stormwater management plan completed. So there isn't that amount of money being used this year. And wages were reduced to reflect the actual wages from 2021.
That's catch basin that we're enlarging. No.
Okay, engineering structure. We've got 21,200 drainage at the Dairy Queen site. Regrading to direct draining from the back alley south to Dairy Queen to 4th Street Southwest. Funds from grants. 29,000 to enlarge a catch basin, 2nd Avenue Northwest. And that's also from grants. And then we've got 22,779.09 going in for future asset engineering projects. Any questions on transportation? Environmental. So these are all the budgets that have to be at zero. So they have to pay for themselves or come from somewhere else.
Rates. They come from rates.
Okay, sales of goods and services increased to better reflect the actual revenue received in 2021. Transfers from operating reserves were reduced by 126,393.50. Funds go to Shrek Capital is lower than 2021. The amount to replace water meters was reduced, and the amount to be transferred is to cover expenses if and as required. Wages were increased, which will reflect the actual from 2021, as there has been employees away during 2021. The expense of purchasing water meters and or their parts has increased because they have started to fail. Now the guys have done a wonderful job fixing them, trying to get the money back where there's warranty. We expected them to last, well, we were told they would last a lot longer. And the original was then purchased by grants. So.
Were they supposed to be 25-year meters?
Yeah, but
I was just 5 years old in the field last summer.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah.
whole
It's
thing with
commonplace.
the whole digital world, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
They're built to fail.
capital projects, equipment. First Avenue Southwest is design and geo. That's finishing it up. The First Avenue, the one that we're talking about, the water portion is 420,422.
That's to put in the new water line. Yeah.
So that's 23% of the project.
Okay.
Capital transfer to operating budget, 132,300. That has to do with sending money to Shrek for capital. And we knew that was coming. They gave us, it's actually been a lot lower than what they've given us each year that they've asked for, so that's a bonus. Assets for the future, future generator, that's the big one out here. It's a very expensive thing. And fire hydrant replacements. Engineering structures, again, that's the asset management, and that will be $8,020.
So just for council's information, to replace a fire hydrant is running in the neighborhood right now for the actual unit and installation in and around $20,000 for each fire hydrant. And some of them haven't been replaced in a long time, and some of them are leaking. So we want to set up a reserve for them.
Wastewater, sanitary sewer. It remains at zero. Revenue for user fees increased to better reflect the actuals in 2021. Sanitary flow test is scheduled for 2022. Transfers were reduced by 2,051,313 as offsite levies for the lagoon upgrade project was sent to West End, so it wouldn't be sent to them. There is a relay switch required to be replaced, and there are funds budgeted to go to capital reserve if there is a surplus. Capital projects, First Avenue Southwest, design and geo. The sewer and sanitation of First Avenue Southwest project is 474,625, and that's 32% of the project. Assets for the future have been put away, 24,000 for equipment, 36,000 for engineering structures. If I'm going too fast, let me know. Okay, keep going. Okay, solid waste or garbage. It has to remain at a 0. 2021, we were told to purchase bins for this curbside 3-bin project. So we got that. Okotoks staff are contracted to do our weekly garbage pickup. The program is to have Okotoks incorporate the 3-stream collection program in 2022. This should reduce and or eliminate recycling requests for requisition to Turner Valley. The recycling center will be closed in June 2022. Increase of funds from operating reserve to cover expenses if and as required is 45,000. And since there's no more money in that section, we have to also have number 24 to make this a 0 budget coming from the capital reserve if and as required. We'll do the operating reserve first and then capital if it's needed. Capital budget. Purchasing of the bins had to come from a reserve and then transferred into operating to pay for them. And then 24,000 for expenses if it's needed. Any questions? Okay. Public health, cemetery, SDSS.
These are new ones for you.
Yeah, she was away.
They're almost there. Well, cemetery is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Brilliant suggestion.
We get a requisition, we pay. It was reduced by 14,000, just about 15,000 from 2021. Surplus from previous years are being transferred in to offset the requisition. This reduces the budget to bring it down to the 3%. The cemetery is run through the Foothills County. The requisition has remained the same for the past few years. FCSS. During the audit, I was questioned on how much I was taking from it. So I went back and looked, and they actually say that it's 80% and we're 20%. So we're putting in more than the 20% just to cover projects. So I'm taking 80% out every time an invoice comes in. I have that paid for the bills. They have to spend an extra $1,800 on the program because there was $1,800 left of the grant last year.
I thought we already spent that.
So I
You might have, but it wasn't in the same time that the budget came forward. So it would have been carried over into 2022, that surplus amount, and then you would have spent it. I think you spent it in January or February. Yeah.
Planning and development, so all the 6s. So planning and development is 61. That is 40,000 over last year. The NSI operating grant is used to offset some of their expenses. So that's what, 30,000?
32,
32?
31, sorry.
Sorry. I missed something. Maybe you skipped it because there was no questions. But
Okay, so
what is public health?
Well, that's the
Public health
accounting
is-
code.
is
That's
things
what?
that help the community. So that's FCSS, cemetery.
Oh, okay.
It's a number that starts with 5.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it's just the accounting code
It's
that
a
falls
government
under public
just
health.
giving it that
Thank
number,
you.
that name.
Thank you.
So yeah, if it's a 5, it's public health.
Okay.
They give them numbers and then they have to call them something. Okay. So the MSI operating is, does that transfer from operating reserve for $50,000 was budgeted to offset the expenses and help with the full budget. Any revenue recognized from safety codes is transferred here. Those permits are, they get 70%, we get 30%. So the more inspections, the more rod you'll get. Funds are being transferred from the EDC operating reserve from previous year's surplus to offset the expenses for the downtown ARP program in planning and development. Funds are sent to Foothills County from 2020 to 2024 for the annexed properties. This is to offset their tax revenue because of the annexation. And the projects that he has for 2022 is the downtown ARP program, flood mapping engineering support, survey of the land swap for the dog parking lot, and off-site levy scope change. And they put $1,000 a year away to repair or replace the plotter. Tourism, EDC. So it's $9,000 lower than last year. We can apply for funds that will enhance EDC in a 20-mile radius. Funds are being transferred from EDC operating reserves from previous year's surplus to offset the expenses from the downtown ARP program. Funds are being transferred from EDC operating reserve from previous year's surplus to offset the expenses of the mountain bike construction for the summer games in the Parks Department.
You guys get that? Okay.
We've had a surplus because of no events, and our person has been away on disability. So we thought we'd share the wealth with projects that are for the places, the residents. Wages were reduced as an employee is expected to remain on disability for 2022. Funds were reallocated from wages to contracted services to hire a contracted person to put on the parade and Canada Day. Because it's really difficult when everybody's got a full-time job to take that on the side.
Can't even find my daughter's birthday, surely, so I don't love you guys.
Okay. The shared EDC position with Turner Valley was not included in this budget. The funds required have been accrued, which is $50,000 in an operating reserve. If the funds are required, an RFD will be required to use these funds, just so that we don't keep skewing the budget and then not use it.
Yeah. So could I ask a question of the people that are on IEBC? What am I looking at?
Hey, I wish I could tell you.
And Andrew,
Is there a reason why we haven't gone forward in the last 2 years with the EBC position?
Well, funny you mention it.
Funny I mentioned it.
We'll be going through the whole problem, just the amalgamations. You gotta deal with all the administrative challenges of who's gonna do the hiring, who's gonna do the job description, who's gonna do this, who's reporting, because we're still 2 towns.
Yeah.
So it's very complicated when we came to it.
Yeah.
And we made our way through with remarkable help from administrations, between Kelly when she was on it, for her leave, then we have Charlene, we have Monique on the other side, they've done a bang-up job for us. At our last meeting, we have now stepped forward, and members at large have come forward requesting that we move to the next step and begin that process of letting administration, surprise, surprise, this will come to you in the weeks to come, letting administration begin hashing out what's the best way to do this. Who's gonna run the lead on it, who's gonna handle it? From there, break down the job description, what we want, whether it's a full-time EDO economic development officer, or do we want somebody in a concierge style position to meet, greet, handle, and work with planning, et cetera? These are still things that need to be worked out, but we have taken the step. We will have requests coming from the committee to council, to direct administration, to take those first steps and get going.
That's awesome
Yeah.
news, Daryl. That's great. Yeah, so should we be budgeting for this?
Again, because by the time we look at the timelines of what it'll take for administration to work through those hurdles, then you've got the job creation, the posting, going through resumes, the hiring. It may take us into September, October, and if the order council comes through, then we amalgamate, and we wait until January start, depending on budgets.
Yeah.
So I think let's keep it all fly right now, and if we do the RFP, we have the RFP.
Yeah, my concern is that there's gonna be some costs to doing the advertising and everything. Should we be planning to put some money aside to pay for those costs? Like, this is, the EDC money was for wages or for salaries, correct, on that position? So do we need to put aside some money, or is it already included in the budget somewhere for doing that?
Clarity.
There's enough money in contracted services for us to be able to pull out for those types of activities. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for the update.
Of course.
Thanks for
asking, Heather.
thanks for the update.
That's gonna come later.
Okay, in the capital budget for that, they're putting away 2,500 for the entrance sign. Should need to be replaced, revamped,
Redone.
renamed.
Yeah.
So going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, the events. I have given them each their own budget, and that way we can find out the money comes from reserves and donations. So the parade, the fall festival, and the Christmas light up.
The music festival?
Has his own budget.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Canada Day Music Fest. Again, it is coming from reserves and donations. I've been putting money from surplus over to it because it's probably more of an expense than most of them. Sustainability is a committee. It's not actually a budget, or it is, but it's got some money in reserves. This is for the different projects. The revenues from sales of goods and services for the rental tables at a sustainability fair. Revenue to cover the expenses come from operating reserves. The low and flow toilet program finished in 2021. And new events would be the water conservation program and the lawn buyback program. Recreation. There's a lot of them, but they're not, only a couple of it. So the first one is parks. Parks budget is 7,500 higher than last year. We're expecting West End pays the Parks Department for ground maintenance, so that's a revenue. The 2021 resolution says that any money generated for the Field of Dreams for the adult will come to us to pay for maintenance, and anything above that amount will go to the Boys and Girls Club. Yes.
Is there a bathroom there locked all the time except for games? Is it
I don't know.
Yes,
locked all the time?
yes, yes. And
Probably a good idea.
the rationale behind that is because we don't have anybody in there doing maintenance right now. So, yeah. Only when there's bookings will it be open.
A portion of the park's operating reserve, so 200,000, is coming from previous surpluses and being transferred over to the Oilfields Regional Arena to offset some of the costs for the refrigeration planned for 2023, because it's a big dollars, and that's part of this. Funds are being transferred from, for the EDC operating reserves for the mountain bike construction for the summer games in the Parks Department. Wages and benefits have increased as a full complement of employees are expected to be on staff during 2022. We've had staff and disability there and after COVID and okay, so the capital, 2000 and capital, land improvement, 40,000 for the mountain bike track. Then transfer to other capital departments is for 200,000. And then assets for the future, we've got equipment for the like mowers, playground equipment, land improvements, pathways, vehicles is future vehicles. The outdoor arena, it doesn't generate any revenue. And there are minimum wages, supplies, and snow removal for this rink.
Is that because, do we not rent that? Rink?
No, it's just for any general use.
Okay.
That's the little rink in the
Smaller
back.
one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
When
Open
I
all the
first
time.
moved It was on the very far end and it was just snow around it and it was,
Right.
so when they were doing all this construction, it got moved up. And it's part of the refrigeration system.
Yes, it used to, so the old, there's been some lines that haven't been working in there, but it is a refrigerated rink.
Oh.
So it does have access to the refrigeration system. Once we have that new system up and running, it will go back to being a refrigerated system.
Is there any
I think.
possibility to rent it out for a cheaper rate? Because it's like, for like figure skating or like, maybe there's.
That you can't go outside. So the user groups don't utilize that rink. They utilize the ORA and the Scott Siemens. If people want to use have a skating facility, then that's what that outdoor rink is for, the little one, the little guy. So the figure skaters, hockey guys, the equipment, the time, the score clocks, the nets, all of that stuff isn't available out there. The PA system for the music isn't out there. So, if they want to just go out and practice on it, have at it, because it's always available.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shirley.
One summer they used that rink for a dance party.
No, that
Who put that on?
ended up in the Scott Siemens. It does get utilized for tennis in the summer and
Okay.
pickleball.
Is that the holes?
Yeah.
For the tennis? Nice, oh, great.
I think that's where we had our outdoor curling too, several years ago.
I think so.
Was
Yeah.
on that. And it was so cold. But it worked really cool. We had just a fun event and they put circles and we took our rocks outdoors and had fun.
Nice.
Scott Seaman. Is 25,000 lower than 2021. 25% of the Fortis franchise revenue is transferred to this budget. The ice rental is budgeted higher than 2009 in anticipation of a restriction that will not affect us. So much for that. Bless our piece. Previous to 2021, sorry, this budget had received a donation to offset. Oh, it did. I didn't pick that up. Oh, we are delighted. A check came for $10,000.
Yeah.
And we have it incorporated it into the budget, which brought it lower.
Excellent.
Funds are being transferred in from operating reserve to offset expenses if and as required. An operating budget expense to be transferred to a capital reserve in the amount of $50,300 for a future flood room building for 2071. Expected to cost $2.5 million. I removed it.
Thank you.
I have a whole list that I have. That was one of the things that I figured he's talking, retiring after the refrigeration comes in. A new person can decide whether we are going to have or need this.
Right.
So I took it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Equipment, capital, 41,200 for a solar system on the Scott Seaman roof. This is coming from the Green Fund, Green Reserve. They had hoped to use a grant, but all the grants for things right now dried up, so he's using the full Green Reserve. Assets for the future, 40,000 is for replacement in the future of an Olympia and for the refrigeration replacement next year.
Charlene, can I ask a question about that one?
Yeah.
In regards to the solar panels,
Yeah.
was, that 41,200, is that complete, or does that get less what he wanted?
Yeah.
Or did he want more?
Oh, he wants more. We all want more.
Does it make sense to look, like, to increase that for him at all? Does that?
So the philosophy has been, is when we have enough room in our green reserve, and how our green reserve works is we budget for what we utilize for our electricity.
Okay.
What we don't spend out of that, because we create our own, goes back into that green reserve.
Okay.
Does that, as long as I'm making sense?
It's like the credit.
It's
Yeah.
like the credit.
Yeah.
We'll use those, and then we will, we'll use those dollars to augment any future. Most times we can match it with grants. The challenge that we had this year is the funding for that type of technology was Johnny on the spot, and if we don't pass the stuff right away, we don't have access to it. So, right? So, does it make sense that we put more on there? I would say in time it would make sense, but I wouldn't use any operational or capital dollars at this point to be able to do that.
Okay.
There's a lot of money out there for grants right now when you look at alternative energies.
Mhm.
And we just have to wait our turn for them to come up.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So there might be some opportunity where we're gonna say, yeah, hey, we need some, 20 grand or 40 grand for
Yeah.
matching, and then we can get, 80 grand worth of stuff, and
Okay.
we'll do that.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
Did he forget about his $30,000 eavesdrops?
that was Scott Seaman.
Yeah, no, we're in ORA now.
We're about to go to
$30,000
ORA.
eavesdrop.
I thought they were like, oh, all right.
Yeah, we're just doing ORA now.
Good to get talked about.
Okay, it's 24,000 higher than last year. The sales of goods and services was reduced to reflect the 2021 actual reserve revenue, sorry. Rental of the concession was increased in an anticipation. Some of the restrictions will not affect the facility. The 2021 resolution, council donated funds to cover the ice rental to support the 2022 Foothills bias. And so I took it out of your last year's budget, put it in reserves, and then brought it back in to pay for that.
They send us a thank you letter for that?
Did they?
Did they? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think they did. I'll look and see.
That's smart. I don't remember. Be nice, thinking about it next year. Fruit basket, wow, just full. Hey, thank you, guys.
You know what, Veronica? You're right, it is on Scott Stevens. It's not on ORA, so I will check with him on that.
That's
Okay.
bad.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That's not gonna happen.
Was it on Scott Stevens?
Yeah.
Like 6 people voting on it.
Okay, a portion of the operating costs are covered by the Foothills County to cover for residential use of the facility. Funds are being transferred from operating reserve to cover the expense of replacing, upgrading technology such as computers, phones, etc. Operating reserves are budgeted to cover expenses if and as required. Contracted security was continued to be used for a portion of 2022 based on the COVID restrictions. A portion of the park's operating reserve from previous surpluses are being transferred to the ORA to go into capital for the refrigeration. Funds from administration, SSSR, and ORA operating budgets are transferred yearly to a capital reserve, the Green Fund. This is an estimated amount recognized from the savings from using green power. These funds are used for green power projects. Funds from the Green Capital Reserve are being transferred to the Scott Seaman capital budget for solar panels on the Scott Seaman building. The amount transferred from the mezzanine to offset expenses has been increased. Capital projects, machine and equipment, $104,000. Engineering for replacement of refrigeration, 2023. Funds for the reserve, from the reserve. An engineering study, refrigeration system will be required to calculate the power requirement for the new refrigeration system. Possibility of removing 1 meter from the Scott Seaman transformer, which will save money. Transfers from other departments, 41,200 transferred from Scott Seaman capital budget to come over for from the green fund. So it has to be transferred from the department. Future assets, 41,576. So we've got equipment, refrigeration, and a compressor. Overhaul. Transfers from other departments to capital reserves, 243,279. It's been a long day, sorry folks. So 12,968 transferred from department operating budget to using solar panels. Administration transferred 1,190. Scott Seaman 3,545 and ORA 8,233. So that's what we transferred into the green fund this year. 200,000 was transferred from parks to go towards the 2023 refrigeration. 40,000 transferred from Scott Seaman capital budget for arena equipment. And that's Olympia replacement and refrigeration replacement. Community garden. The lady that is running it is named Jane Case, and she wrote us a lovely letter to tell us the things that they're doing and to thank us for everything. So I included that as part of our group, and it's in a few of the other places. So it's 3 days, or 3 pages worth.
Mhm. And they're actively seeking grants for bed replacements that we're helping with.
Okay. Now this is a self-contained group, and again, as it used to be in a reserve, and the auditors have asked me to put it into a deferred revenue because we have to go outside of council to use to get permission to use their funds since they're raising it. So it's just a different part of the resource that we're putting it in. It's just how they want it recognized going forward.
They're going into AR as well?
No, their funds are,
Okay, okay.
until they give us a project, they're deferred.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
not, council doesn't make the choice as to how that
Yeah.
money is, the community gardens.
Right, okay.
What was the other one that we did that for, that I had to change?
Skateboard park.
Skateboard park, okay. Campground, they also wrote us a letter and told us everything that they were doing. From removing trees, having heaters, putting in LED lights, security cameras, Christmas lights and decorating for the skating rink. They're looking at the possibility of having a skating, like a sidewalk skate sort of thing, and signage.
They want to market around their skating rink for next year.
They're talking about the possibility of doing a gazebo. and upgrading their Wi-Fi.
Is Wi-Fi available there year round, or is they shut that off and
No, you're right.
it's year round? So when they're skating over there, the
You
kids
can
can
Wi-Fi it.
access Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You can put music on
I
there.
was like, that's the thing I would never hear, I thought I would ever hear a sentence. You can get Wi-Fi while you skate.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know that was, I mean,
Yeah, they have a hotspot.
yeah, okay.
So we set that up with the fiber project. So they've got a hotspot, 606 is a hotspot, here's a hotspot. Yeah, we got all different kinds of
Cool.
hotspots.
Cool.
We took TELUS to, you know, well, we had an advantage. We tried to get as much done as possible.
The skateboard park, I had to move the money out of reserve and put it into deferred because the question was asked, could we do anything we wanted with it? Or do we have to, if we weren't going to do the skateboard park, would we have to go back to that gentleman and ask to use it for something? I said we had to ask, so they put it to deferred. So it's not in a budget until we start actually doing work.
Okay.
And then I can transfer the money in.
That one, the community garden and skateboard will be like that going forward.
Colin's hoping to present at some point here in the near future.
It's exciting.
I didn't see it on the agenda. No, it wasn't him. He had to switch. He went from, was it New Line? He went to the main competitor to get them both of them. So anyway, I think I might have that actually.
So they've raised $194,000. So
Yeah,
they've done super duper duper.
Yeah.
Pretty close to his $200,000.
To pretty close to 200,000. Yeah, the
So
goal. That's
the
exciting.
redesign is 225,000. That's sure that's worth.
Oh,
Apparently Colin quit Parks and Rec, so it's hard to find. I found out through Les.
Quit?
Yeah, he resigned from Parks and Rec. Colin.
Oh.
But I guess the new project, the new potential cost is 225 for his needs,
okay,
but it's good.
Okay, well,
So
good.
hopefully he brings it to council because it's gonna be cool.
yeah, good. Okay.
That's what I know.
The mezzanine, that's the area above the arena, and it's a zero budget. So they send money, transfer money over to offset some of the expenses, like the utilities and stuff. I increased how much we sent over this year. Our full revenue was budgeted in 2022 after previous council reduced the 2021 lease by 6 months each year. Any surplus realized is automatically transferred to the mezzanine operating reserve for future repairs and renovations. Library. It's 1,324 lower than last year. So the Foothills County pays 20% of the requisition for the usage of their residents. We have to bill them. They only want one bill. So we were elected to be the person that bills them. And then we pay Turner Valley back for their portion. This is the last year that we pay for the MOU agreement between Turner Valley and Black Diamond for the $250,000 in payment for the interest on the debenture Turner Valley took out for the new library. The Sheep River Library 2022 requisition decreased by $2,005. The Marigold requisition increased by $686.40.
Sorry,
Just
Shirley?
about the end. Yes,
That's done, isn't it, the $250,000?
this is the last year.
This will be the last year.
Okay, just information. The operating budget presented do not have the following information. The education tax, things that have no department does not go in there, but we do subtract them from, or add them, I'm sorry, when we're trying to do the budget for the actual calculation for taxes.
Your tax rate bylaw will show these numbers.
So you haven't seen these, so I'm letting you see them now. So the 2022 education property tax requisition was 1,079,943.93, an increase of 14,587. We don't have a choice. They just take it out of our bank, so. And we write a check to Christ Redeemer for their portion every quarter. I forgot to do it one year and they were a little nasty when they phoned me to remind me. That was my first year. Westminster Community Seniors requisition was 48,232.94, and an increase of just about $800. We always have to have that sent to them by March 31st of every year.
And Shirley,
Yeah.
you'll see that on our tax rate bylaw as well.
Yes.
And it's not called West Winds, it's called what's it called?
The seniors
The
requisition.
seniors.
Yeah, so just for new council members, when they come to see the tax rate bylaw, that's what it looks like.
The operating
Seniors
budget
housing.
was, okay, doesn't have those ones. So we take these things and subtract it so that we can lower, so these are revenues expected to come in, and that will lower the number at the time that we're trying to do the tax. So business licenses, taxes, penalties, and costs. The franchise fees, ADCO, we get 100% for, and then Fortis is 50%.
That's what goes into general revenue.
Yes, because 25 goes to the road and 25 goes to the Scott Seaman. And any interest we earn, which is really yucky this year in comparison.
Ta-da! Can you do the Looney Tunes song for us?
No. And you want to change, add,
I just had a question. The planning and development, they thought that there was an error in there, was there? They thought something was duplicated in their budget?
No.
They were gonna check into it, and
we didn't
No.
find a duplication, but they did increase by another $3,000. But because the requisition to the library was lower, it offset it.
okay, yeah.
So the operating budget is 1.82%. The assessments are up. Highly suggest that you will not see a significant, you will not see any increase in your municipal mill rate. Yeah. And in some places, they may see a decrease, depending on the
Yes,
assessment.
The assessments go up by 3%?
Can't you read my lips? I'll let you know when we have our tax rate bylaw what they'll, but I'm thinking it's closer to anywhere from 5 to 15.
I heard on the news that they're anticipating a 15% increase in public next year.
So
So,
It's like going shopping there.
I don't know if that's good or not.
I don't know. So,
So in this one, the 22 proposed budget, operating budget total with percentages, it shows what you'll be, unless we do any changes right now. The first page is all the operating with your percentage of 1.82. And the next two pages is the capital projects.
Did a lot of the, because 2.72 to 1.82, obviously, some things have really gone down. Was this largely in part due to COVID with, like, a lot of those costs, just different areas,
masks here, $10,000, hand sanitizer over there. We're not
Not,
seeing
not
revenue.
necessarily.
Well-
One of the reasons why it went down is because we got that $20,000
For the rink.
for the rink. Now, I
And we
could,
did not get that the year before.
no, we didn't.
Right.
I could have, he's taking 25,000 in from reserves. I could have taken that 20 off and left it the same. But that way, it just gives them that little bit more. We're planning to use it, so it's there only if and as he needs it.
And we're still at 1.82 even with that.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was taking out, the, reserve for the 100,000, increasing Jamie's, revenue by 20,000, putting in the 20,000 from that grant, taking Les's 50,000 for the building out. That
Yeah.
brought it from 14 down to this now.
Yeah, and what happens is when you see the revenue in all different departments increase, right, and the expenses don't increase, the expenses are the same, pretty much, give or take a little bit here and there,
Mhm.
but that's where you'll see that adjustment.
Okay,
And that's why it reflects the way it does.
well done.
So 3,416,052.57 will be our, on the operating side from taxes.
Yep.
That we'll see on the tax rate bylaw.
Yep.
Give or take. And then, so we need to talk about that capital project that we would add here or go forward with an RFP, so.
Yeah.
um,
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Ken has a question.
Yeah, let's go. We got 683,000 going into reserve, capital reserve.
Yes.
Thinking way outside the box right here, the whole purpose of the reserves is to save up for the future. And some of our reserves can also be used for emergencies. With inflation going way up, people having trouble making their mortgage payments, people saying that they're having trouble feeding their families. If we were to cut, instead of 683,000, say, put 350,000. Say, cut everything by 50%. Just to cut back on taxes, in fact, say, we'd actually have a smaller tax to the residents. Yes, we'd have to make up that money in the future, but we have to survive the next couple of years before we can worry that much about the future. Is that a possibility? Is that too far outside the box? Is it-
Okay, some of these things are for projects, for our infrastructure. Most of the capital, now, some of the operating ones, we don't, they're for our computers and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I guess you guys would have to make that decision. Yes, you could, but somebody's gotta pay for it down the road.
Eventually.
We're just starting now with the asset management. So we're already way behind, should we need to catch up for infrastructure, for, equipment. So, yeah, that's definitely your choice.
For sure.
So basically, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a significant reduction in grants as we're going
Yes.
forward. And also, as you noticed, there's an increase in the cost of replacing our infrastructure. And you have noticed that as well. So those two need to balance each other out. So our savings program isn't significant. It's less than 2% of the actual cost of what it costs for that infrastructure. What I was saying earlier, we will see an increase in assessments. And we also will have your mill rate, your municipal mill rate will not go up. You may even see some decreases in some properties. Depends on what kind of property and all the rest of it. We understand that there is people that are in really tough places, but it is not, the municipality also has to run long-term. And if you think that the cost to the people is increasing, imagine what the cost to the municipality is increasing. And so our job, and I get it, I get what you're saying. And so there might be some other options for those, for people that are having challenges. And so the best bet is for people who are having challenges up until the time that we pass the budget and or the tax rate. I'm going to suggest that everything is going to be at least the same as it was last year, if not slightly lower.
As far as the amount of money that each resident will have to pay.
Yeah, I think though, long term, really, you want to be able to replace your assets, or else we're going to be going into a situation where you're going to have to borrow. And we haven't had that luxury where we've had to borrow. And you'll see when we have our audit meeting tomorrow and what our debt ratio looks like. But we're in pretty good financial shape to be able to say we've been doing well with our asset replacements. We don't have all the streets, no, and we don't have all of our infrastructure done, but we're making really great strides in it.
Yeah, I appreciate that costs are going up. We will have to replace this equipment eventually. The ability of some people to pay is not going up. So
there's other options, and when just some of those people.
Bank usage is way up.
Yeah.
Lots of, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Just we have great people that do great things in this office. So, if you run into those people, funnel them down, and we'll be able to, potentially, whether they're seniors and they qualify for, their subsidies on their, or if they take that education tax off, there's different programs for that. If they're younger people that are having other issues or other family issues, and we have a lot of support mechanisms, and we do a lot of referrals, and we understand a lot of those things. So we have great people in great places that do that kind of work. So just send them off down.
Tell them where to go.
No, send them, just refer them to us, is what I'm asking, okay?
Yes.
But I don't think that you want to be cutting your savings program to reduce the mill rate, when I'm going to suggest that it would already be reduced.
Thanks for asking. I was curious. We got to ask so that we have something to give back to our residents when they're asking us. If there's nothing else, can we talk about the streets? Yeah. Maybe. Daryl, did you have a question?
Free Street.
Sure.
I don't know how far into the weeds you want to get on this. With regards to the council budget, our donations budget, I put a request for a place card holder for an added $350 from the high school.
It's in there.
It is in there?
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Just to let council know what my intention on that was with your approval, is we have in the council budget, I think it's $1,350 for the Black and Gold Awards at the high school. Is that amount correct? I think.
300. Let's pull it up and we'll just.
We have one dedicated to the Black and Gold Awards. For the last 2 years with COVID, they haven't done it. So they've come to the council and asked for $300, $250 for the posters that went in front of the town hall for the graduating.
Donations.
I'm kind of thinking this is something our town should be doing on a regular basis. So I asked for a place card holder for that extra ask for $350. That's something we should be doing on top of the Black and Gold regardless, just as a yearly thing. I figure for the $350 for the 30 some odd kids that graduate, it's chump change to recognize what they do. Yeah. So that's what I asked for, so if everybody's okay with it.
Yeah, pretty sure it was in there. Or is it in the mayor's?
Nice way to celebrate it.
Well, there's that.
Yeah, I think you took it from before.
I think it's in the mayor's one.
Either way, you took that, you put in the mayor, right? The mayor budget?
I think I went under council donations.
I'm gonna bet.
No, it's under mayor's. 350 for photos.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, got it covered.
It's a great idea, man.
Thanks, Scott.
No, thank you, Daryl. I just take it and use it, man.
After being at the provincial tournament for the basketball, seeing what the administration, what the kids go through and their efforts that they put into it, Lee Bressop's getting rave reviews for holding following the provisions the way he did. He sent out surveys to all the schools that took part. He's got about half back that have said they will go to the provincial athletics going, oil fields should host provincials yearly. It shouldn't be moving around. What he did with the lights, the music, the hosting, the partners, volunteers, he's put it on the map. So a lot of the volunteers are on the grass because technically it's like fundraising for what they do to get their credits for, yada, yada, yada. Put up the posters. I see them on the highways sometimes driving around town in May, June, and July. Families, they stick it in their front porch type thing. For me, that's just recognizing the youth that have gone through. So,
We go out and stand on the street when they drive by
yeah.
and cry.
We help them put their photos up on the,
Yeah.
we help stake them out. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
I have one other question for clarity. Just
Never.
because I can't remember the conversation in the Capitol, the crosswalk over at 606 with
Yeah.
the lights. Did we need, or do we need, and have we got AT's permission to do it?
Yeah.
Okay, but we do need, it. Okay, I was just, there.
Yeah, you have to approve it first.
Because I wasn't, we approve it, timeline to get them approved it.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, I think we're pretty quick on those.
Because as long as AT's not like.
Was it who's paying?
Oh,
Yeah.
Here? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, give
We're
her,
not asking.
just send us a picture, it's fine.
Okay, I'm not.
Thanks, Carl.
Oh, wait.
You got one other one? You want to trade spots for just a quick sec, Cheryl?
You bet. You
Does anyone want to take 5? Or are we almost done this?
Take 5.
Yeah, okay, let's take 5 at 7:50, okay, everyone?
Your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
Meeting
Can
adjourned.
you hear us now?
Thank you.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Are you the CIA?
Yeah, yes.
Can you hear us now?
Trying to get a walkie-talkie function.
You don't have line.
It's not real good dictator.
Okay, so if we want to, so I'm gonna ask council's, support on the capital, so we can get these things done. The other piece that came to mind as we were sitting there, we should also potentially do an RFP for the approval of the engineering for the refrigeration system. We had a tendering meeting, and we chose not to award that because it was included in the budget and we didn't want to do that ahead of time. So I'm going to suggest that council may want to take and make a motion in regards to that as well. Just so that work can get done as well.
Thanks. She said yes.
Oh, okay. And then if you want to add another $500,000 in there for your pavement on 4th Street, we can do that, but you're going to have to make the conscious choice to take that out of the water looping reserve, if that's what you want to do.
What was there?
A lot water.
Well, we had a contingency reserve for the water looping,
Okay.
and so that was just left in the water looping reserve, so we'll just take it out of that if you want to move
Right.
ahead with it.
Just 1.2 million.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Shirley. Just wrapping my head around this. So paving that road, if we get everything put in place, including this, you could kind of morph that into, so if all the paving equipment is out here for this, it could potentially
Yep.
be some cost savings. If
Oh
we
yeah, your mold and demold
Do that.
costs, yep. It'll, yeah,
do them
it'll all,
together, so.
Yep.
I'm pretty much, if it was gonna be a separate project completely,
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
but I think that if we can do it together, that it's worthwhile moving forward with this, because honest to goodness, those roads down there are horrible.
yeah.
So question for everybody then, I guess, if we're gonna do the paving, are we gonna do sidewalks? Because that's gonna create some engineering, designing, and big costs.
And
So we can either do the paving only and come back to sidewalks?
Can I look and see?
it's interesting to me, Daryl, that part of that street looks like it was once back alley, and part of it is like, because all the garages are facing onto it, so.
It's totally.
I think for part of that, there's sidewalks on the other side
On,
of the next street, so I
I
don't
agree
know
with
that
you.
I
It's-
would worry about sidewalks along there.
I agree with you, it's totally back alley. There's like 7 houses that face. each
Yeah.
other.
Like at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of them are all, like it must have been a back alley at one time, not a street.
because it's that last block
This one here?
going up to 3rd, that's gonna create the major expense on that walkway, if you want to put sidewalk.
There might not even be easements on which.
There might not be,
So
right.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
So I like the comment,
There definitely is. some-
We can do curb and gutter on there, like take a look at the curb and gutter and see what needs to be replaced, because you'll need to do that for storm anyway.
in Milwaukee.
But I would suggest it, and it's I'm gonna tell you, in all honesty, we have people that live in these particular houses here that use the boulevard as part of their yard and have for a very long time. We have people in here that use the boulevard as part of their yard and have, like, we have some easement issues in here and some, and I would hazard to say that it might be easier just to do curb and gutter and pavement.
Even looking
I
at
think
the,
that it would be great just to do that.
if you look
And
at the
I
Google
think
Maps,
people would be happy with that too.
the 7th
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
You'll get one who wants to.
Oh, yeah, you might get one or two that are gonna complain about it, but
It's gonna be 6 kids walking across anyway, who fit on the sidewalk.
None of them use the sidewalks anyways. Even when they're there.
yeah.
I have a question now for council's consideration. If we do this whole particular street here, going down to Center, which is fine. Politically, how do you deal with that comparatively to this high traffic road?
I'll tell you, I live on that street.
I
It
know,
would look really bad if we did that street.
that's why I'm asking the question.
That one's next.
That's why I'm asking the question.
That one's next, and when we made that decision to do what the southwest one versus the northwest one,
It's because of water leaks.
because of the condition of the pipes, and also the Dairy Queen wasn't there at the time. So now that the Dairy Queen's built, that sort of changes the perspective.
And the equipment's
And
there.
the equipment is
That was why we
right
asked
there.
to begin with, the equipment's there.
So yes, that street is horrible, it's brutal, and people go too fast, and it needs to be done, but I will have to wait
Okay.
and just. pay
Because
extra
there may be concerns, like, you know, you may be making a political choice. And you have, like we said, you know, as we're having these asset management conversations, there is political pieces that get involved. People have wanted this street done for a very long period of time because of the amount of traffic that's on there, because they can't get through here.
There's a barrier to close it.
Yeah, and like, there's the street that goes in front of the campground, that street. The
Yeah.
lower part of that street is absolutely horrendous
It
too.
is.
So, I mean,
Just have
we
to
have to
start
make,
with
we
that.
have to make some
Yeah,
choices
it
here,
does.
and this one makes sense if we're doing the other project.
That's right.
Okay,
To me, it makes sense
Yeah.
to.
You'll
to
recall, I
join them.
Yeah, the
suggested
amount
to
of
pay this,
commercial,
not
not
mine.
commercial, but the amount of traffic that's now increased based on the fact that Dairy Queen's there on Fourth Street alone, just between First and Center, would justify the fact it's being paved, because otherwise it would have to be graded more often or fixed more often, because there's gonna be tons of potholes and all sorts of shit. So it makes total sense.
Don't worry.
It justifies anything else. They're just being.
We will
That
get
Northwest
people.
is next.
okay, just as long as council is aware, right? I want to, you have to have those hard conversations.
Yep.
Because if going through this because of a development is taking away from the other plans, right? Yeah. Just so that we're clear.
All right, let's put all the streets into a hat and then we'll pick one.
No, First Avenue Northwest is next.
So what do you need from us, Charlene, a motion?
Yeah, I'd like two motions, actually. I'd like, and actually, if I can, Verna, are you there? Where is our,
Just passing word.
I just want to have our Word document here.
Why do we need to bring it back? Just pass the budget as is.
In capital.
Okay, well. Okay, well, should we?
I'm here.
Well,
Do you
I
need
think-
something?
Yeah, I think so. Like you can pass the operating budget tonight, but I would suggest that you do that at a full council meeting. It's just,
Right.
Optics.
it's just optics. Yeah,
Capital.
the capital, because it all comes from grants. It's, with the exception of this additional paving project, which will come from the capital reserves.
So in theory, then, we could give you a motion tonight that council will accept the capital budget as presented.
Yep.
And we don't have to give you any other motions.
Well, we have to include
The new one.
the new one. So not as presented, we have to
As
include the new
amended.
one.
As amended with the new road.
With the new paving structure.
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay
I
with
would be
that
okay with
too.
it too.
Passing the capital budget makes more sense to me tonight if we can,
Chad,
Give you the motion.
I'm good with it.
and that one's done.
Ted, how do you feel about that?
I can live with it.
Okay,
I'm gonna spend money now.
let's do it.
I'll give you that motion. then.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Good job.
Schedule time, you're done.
Yeah, 100%.
As amended,
Oh, sorry.
the inclusion.
Paving of Fourth Street
Southwest.
You need some tired.
What?
You need some tired.
Is that a terminology thing?
Good ask, by the way.
I don't know.
But the people funds would like a nice slide.
Yeah, well.
Flavor City.
Future voters.
All of it. Take well,
Do you want to put the amount in there?
We'll still need design.
Yeah, well, we're around 550. It'll probably be at 6 when it's all said and done.
Would like that basin. That too.
Okay, so
The council agreed with us.
Do you need?
I'd like to do this in two, I'd like to do it based in two. That's where I was going at first. And then do a secondary do a secondary motion for the rest of it.
Because there's more to say than the village money.
Yeah.
Question for Larry? Okay.
Can I start there?
In the amount of,
That's the next one.
Or the capital budget as presented. Thank you. There you go. You haven't approved it yet.
are we putting an amount in?
The council
Because, like, how
agreed
does the public even know what we're approving?
Yeah, just hold on a second.
I've got the number for you, I think,
The
Charlie.
the total number on the capital? Because
Uh,
normally what we would do is put each project in.
So the first resolution should be then the addition of this project to the capital budget, and then we pass the capital budget as amended, right?
I would like to do that in a second motion, and the reason why is because we can't just add it. How am I gonna say that? It's a new project that's added to the budget. Okay? And we're gonna take that amount out of reserves.
Right?
And these ones, so far, there's no monies coming out of reserves.
Right? So what difference does that make?
I don't know. It's just easier for accounting, I would assume.
Well, accounting knows where the money's gonna come from. So
Okay.
my suggestion is that we agree to pass a capital budget as, but the first motion should be to include the paving project in the capital budget. And then we would pass the capital budget as amended.
I don't know how much it's going to cost us.
No, but I mean, we could give an estimate.
Yes. Well, like, are you putting in curves and gutters, or is it just paving? They did,
No sidewalks, curb gutter and paving, I think is what
the
we did.
estimate we have is for paving, so.
Yeah. So with an estimated cost of, say, 600,000 for now. So I mean, a budget's an estimate, so we should be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
600,000.
Depends if it has to be.
That's changed.
To not exceed 700,000 maybe. And where it's gonna come from. In the motion.
Council agreed to include the paving project of 4th Street Southwest in its entirety. In the 2022 capital budget.
do we have to say not to exceed 700,000?
No, we're not doing that yet.
Okay.
I think this is where Heather's going. Am I correct?
Yeah, but I think we need to have a cost estimate in here and where the money's gonna come from in this motion.
So from reserves not to exceed 700?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
to be,
Council agreed to include the paving project of 4th Street in its entirety in the 2022 capital budgets with the funds to
not exceed
not exceed
700,000 I would put in. Because I mean, if we're under that, then we're under it.
actually.
Could come
Yeah,
from
and if we
members.
go over, then we'll just have to do a budget amendment.
Okay.
To be
Transfer.
transferred from. Where do we count that list?
Just say capital reserve, don't specify.
Yeah, yeah.
Where you get money.
To be funded.
Okay.
That council,
That's good for me.
the council agreed to include the paving of project of Ford,
Yeah. The paving up.
paving project of Ford.
Entirety in the 2022 capital budget performance.
Not good.
Okay, does anyone want to speak to it? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Heather, for walking that through with Charlene. Thank you, Charlene.
And then another motion.
And then we'll do the
to
one.
Pass the capital budget.
And Daryl, would you like to put that one through?
So. Maybe as amended,
Amended.
and then we have to include that in that cost, so
Okay.
I can add that up here. So the total is 83.
Well, this isn't the whole capital budget. This is the infrastructure portion of the capital budget. Can I just call it that? Because in your capital budget, you also have, you know,
Transfers.
the transfers and, yeah, you've got other stuff in the, you've got the jaws of life, you've got. No, I guess that would work.
Transfer Assets, it,
Just pass the capital budget. Okay. So your costs, yeah, that'll be good. And then add 700,000 to the bottom of it.
So it's 4,000,000 and 85, 686.93.
4,856,9683. 686.
Can you scroll down a little bit,
686,
Charlene? You just can't see it. Thank you.
Can you just give? Can you just?
40.
Thank you.
40. 85,686 and 93 cents.
686.
Oh, you don't mind. 4,000,000.
Yep.
$85,686.93. That's gotta be a comma there, not a dot.
Thank you.
You just add it to, yeah,
Capital project.
and I don't think we need the 93 cents in there.
She's
I
right.
rounded it up.
688.
I gotcha.
Somebody wanna check my adding on that, so that we're right?
Bill, do you have it right there?
Here.
Capital projects.
Yeah, so it's 3,385, 686.93 plus 73,000.
3 equals 4,085,686.93.
Yeah, okay.
You got her.
Who's making this motion?
Would you like to give it a read for us?
The council agreed to pass the 2022 capital budget as amended with an amount not to exceed $4,085,687.
Would anyone like to speak to it?
Let's get paid.
All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Let's pay some. We'll ride.
Game in the future for the teams.
That's awesome.
Well done, everyone. That's great.
Capital's done.
I don't think so. Are we done? Would you like to adjourn?
did you have anything? Oh, that was everything you did.
Do it. No. Are we okay? May I adjourn? At 8:23 on this beautiful Tuesday night, I will adjourn the meeting.